The Equation of Truth, a story of dignity, proof, and unexpected change. Julian Carter walked into the back row of Dr. Marissa Trent's advanced calculus class at Lincoln Preparatory Academy like he always did, quietly, deliberately, with his notebook aligned and two precisely sharpened pencils by his side. He didn't speak. He never needed to. Numbers had always spoken more honestly than people. Julian wasn't there because of legacy or wealth like most of the students whose parents sat on the school's donor wall. He was there because he earned it. One of only a handful of black students at the school, Julian had landed his seat through a fiercely competitive merit scholarship. He had a brain for numbers, a work ethic inherited from his grandfather, and a calm resolve that made some mistake him for withdrawn. But what he lacked in pedigree, he made up for in precision. At 8 a.m. sharp, Dr. Trent swept into the classroom, her heels echoing off the floor, her pearl necklace clinking lightly with every stride. At 51, she was a pillar of academic formality. Her lessons were impeccable, her standards unrelenting. She had taught the children of senators, Fortune 500 CEOs, and industrialists. And she let everyone know it. Today, she announced, tapping her chalk against the board with a metronomic rhythm, we begin parametric equations. Let's see who actually completed the reading. Her eyes briefly stopped on Julian, just long enough to make a point. Julian had not only completed the assigned reading, but he'd spent hours digging into alternate methods from one of his grandfather's dusty engineering books. Math was his refuge, a world of rules and consistency. In math, bias didn't get a say. Mr. Carter, Dr. Trent's voice sliced through the air like a blade. Since you seem especially pensive today, perhaps you'd like to solve this problem for the class. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward him. From the front row, Brent Collier, a smug senior whose last name graced the school's science wing, grinned, arms folded. Julian stood, felt his heartbeat, but didn't flinch. The equation on the board was challenging by design, but Julian saw something in it, a symmetry others might miss. He used a substitution method from his grandfather's old book. It was elegant, efficient, and correct. As he reached the answer, Dr. Trent approached, her heels growing louder with each step. She stopped beside him, stared at the board, and her lip curled. What is this? It's a different method, Dr. Trent, Julian answered calmly. But the answer's correct. She scoffed. Different is not better. What you've done is not what I taught in class. This is freelancing. Improvisation. Julian opened his mouth to explain, but was cut off. This kind of mathematical anarchy may have passed at your previous school, but at Lincoln, we follow proven methodology. Perhaps if you focused less on shortcuts and more on instruction, you'd understand why the scholarship committee expects excellence, not creativity. The final words were a blade. Students chuckled. Brent mimed erasing the board behind Julian's back. Humiliation burned down his neck as he walked back to his seat. When Brent was called up next, Dr. Trent greeted him with warmth. His solution, while longer and clunkier, led to the same result, but she praised his discipline. Julian said nothing. He didn't need to. He knew what just happened. You handled that better than I would have, said Anya Desai, plopping her tray beside him during lunch. A fellow scholarship student and one of the school's few South Asian girls, she was sharp, outspoken, and had Julian's back since freshman year. Your method was clean. I double-checked. Julian poked at his lunch. Doesn't matter. It does. He shook his head. Even if I say something, who's going to believe me? She's a published mathematician. I'm just the scholarship kid. Across the cafeteria, Brent mimicked Julian again, dramatically writing on an invisible board. More laughter. Julian stared at the clock. Just 7 more months, he murmured. Then MIT. Then none of this will matter. That night, Julian sat at the dining table, surrounded by textbooks. His grandfather, Howard Carter, a retired aeronautical engineer now working part-time as a janitor, walked in, carrying his toolbox and the scent of oil and dust. Long day, he asked, pouring coffee for both. Julian nodded and told him what happened. Howard listened without interrupting, his fingers folding over one another slowly. You know what your grandmother would have said? He asked gently. They can only take your dignity if you give it to them. Julian looked down. Don't you forget, you were decoding engine models at 10. You belong at that school. You belong in every room you enter. Later that night, while working on Dr. Trent's assignment, Julian found himself deep into Chapter 17, immersed in a differential equations set. Problem 17 caught his attention. Something about the textbook's method didn't sit right. He checked, rechecked, then tried his approach. His answer, 3.842. Textbook answer, 4.017. He went back again, and again. By 2 a.m., Julian was wide awake, adrenaline coursing through him. What if the textbook was wrong? It was a bold thought. The textbook, Calculus, Advanced Principles by Dr. Harrison Wade, was a national staple. But the error was there. A subtle, cascading miscalculation caused by a single missing negative sign. He needed to be sure. By sunrise, Julian had traced every implication, every chain reaction in the formulas. The error wasn't just local. It compromised several related equations. "You haven't slept," his grandfather said the next morning, sliding over a mug. Julian showed him the work. Howard whistled low. "You found something important. What are you going to do about it?" "I don't know," Julian admitted. "If I take it to Dr. Trent, she might think I'm challenging her." After yesterday, Howard's gaze was steady. Knowledge is never just knowledge. You found something real. Now stand in your truth. Julian took a deep breath. He needed backup. That afternoon, Julian found himself inside the office of Professor Malik Jennings at nearby Tri-State University, a renowned mathematician and one of the few black professors in the department. His office was lined with portraits of NASA engineers, formula-covered whiteboards, and a framed quote. "Truth stands, even if there be no public support." "Gandhi, you're saying there's an error in Wade's textbook?" Professor Jennings asked, peering over his glasses. Julian nodded, handing him the annotated packet. Silence followed, broken only by murmurs and scribbles. Finally, the professor looked up. "You're absolutely right. This is a legitimate, significant error." Julian exhaled, tension melting from his shoulders. Professor Jennings continued, "I've seen seasoned researchers miss this. Your approach is not just correct, it's sharp." The professor agreed to back him. They refined the explanation, rehearsed responses to potential rebuttals, and polished the proof. "You don't need permission to be brilliant," Jennings told him. "But presenting it with humility? That's strength." As Julian left, the professor handed him a card. "Call me if you need support tomorrow." The next day, Julian tried to approach Dr. Trent before class. She barely looked up when he knocked on the faculty lounge door. "Dr. Trent," he said, voice steady. "May I speak to you privately?" She gestured reluctantly. Julian explained everything. The discovery, the verification, Professor Jennings' involvement. Her posture stiffened. "You went outside this school?" she asked coldly. "I needed to be sure before I came to you. You presume you found an error in a text vetted by PhDs, used in top universities?" With respect, Julian replied, "Math doesn't care about rank. It cares about truth." Her face hardened. "We'll discuss this another time. I have a visitor to prepare for." Julian returned to his seat, heart heavy. A woman sat in the back of the room, Dr. Elena Ruiz from Veritas Publishing, there to observe for the textbook's next edition. As class began, Dr. Trent reached the faulty equation. She taught it, step by step, exactly as written. Julian's hand rose. "Yes, Mr. Carter? There's a mistake in the equation." The room froze. Eyes darted. "In the book," Julian clarified, "equation 17.4 is missing a negative sign. It changes the outcome." Dr. Trent's face went tight. "You believe that?" Dr. Ruiz leaned forward. "Let's hear him out." Julian walked to the board, calm now, walking through each step. He showed the textbook's answer, then the correct one. Then he demonstrated how the missing sign led to a cascade of error. When he finished, the room was silent. Brent raised a hand, sputtering. "That can't be." Dr. Ruiz stepped in. "Actually, textbooks do contain mistakes. That's why we publish new editions. This is compelling." Dr. Trent said nothing as Julian handed over the proof packet, complete with Professor Jennings' signature. At that moment, the classroom door opened again. In walked Professor Jennings. "Forgive the interruption," he said, smiling politely. "I believe Julian mentioned I might stop by." The room shifted. By the time the bell rang, no one had moved. Principal Mathis was already scheduling a meeting. Later that afternoon, in the conference room, Julian sat across from Dr. Trent, Dr. Ruiz, Principal Mathis, Professor Jennings, and his grandfather. The principal read the findings aloud. "I understand this correction has now been verified by Professor Jennings and Dr. Ruiz's editorial team?" "Yes," Dr. Ruiz confirmed. Dr. Wade has also been informed. He's impressed. He'd like to speak with Julian directly. Julian could barely breathe. Dr. Trent's face remained impassive. The pursuit of truth, Professor Jennings said, should be encouraged, not punished. Indeed, Dr. Ruiz added. And we'd like to formally credit Julian in the next edition. Julian blinked. Me. And offer you a summer internship, she said warmly. We need minds like yours. Julian's grandfather beamed. Told you. You belong. In the hallway, students stared in awe. Brent remained quiet for once. Ani nearly tackled him with excitement. You broke the system, she said. I didn't break it, Julian corrected. I just fixed the math. The next day, Julian received an email from MIT admissions. Congratulations. Full scholarship. Graduation came quickly. Julian gave the valedictorian speech. When I came to Lincoln, I thought success meant always having the right answer. I've learned that the courage to challenge the wrong ones is just as important. From the audience, Dr. Trent nodded, no longer a gatekeeper, but a humbled observer. She handed him a copy of the textbook after the ceremony. Turn to the acknowledgments, she said. There, printed beneath the editors, was one name, Julian Carter. Thank you, she whispered. You reminded me what teaching is about. Julian smiled. You reminded me what standing in your truth looks like. And so, from the back of the room to the forefront of change, Julian Carter began a new chapter, not just as a mathematician, but as a voice of clarity in a system often clouded by ego. And this, dear reader, is how truth, humble, persistent, undeniable, rewrites more than just textbooks. It rewrites lives.